I think all four of their cars will get in, but it will be a fight for them to get all their cars in the field.
All right, let's talk about what I don't like to say low-budget teams because nobody likes to be labeled as a low-budget team. But let's talk about a low-budget team. Let's take Team Carl and Charlie Kimball. Obviously, they're a Chevy shop. They're Charlie Kimball, the number 23. We talked about Award a couple times already today. The rookie there in the number 31 Chevrolet, and Max Chilton in the number 59 Chevrolet.
And we can include Alonso in that because technically that is a Carlin car, that McLaren entry.
Touché.
They've been the disappointment of the week, no question. Other than Charlie Kimball, who, speak of the devil, has the fewest number of races for that team this year besides Alonso, I'd say he's the only one who I could comfortably say will make the field today. I think it's going to be a fight for Award with the backup car. I think it's going to be a fight for Alonso with the backup car. And hard to believe after he looked so good and almost won the race 2 years ago how Max Chilton looks sort of gun-shy. It's not that I think he's not lost confidence, but it just seems like he can't get out of the car what he thinks he can get. And what's even worse about it is they have Chevrolet engines, which is supposedly the stronger of the two engines here at Indy, and they can't put 2 and 2 together. Instead of getting 4, they get 98 or something. So other than Kimball, it's going to be a rough day, I'd say, for Trevor Carlin and company, just trying to get all 4 cars in. And I think they will just barely do it if they do. But, again, it may come down to the last qualification run as to whether or not all 4 of their cars get in.
We're talking with Matthew Embry, our official IndyCar contributor. Matthew's live down at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'll be joining him right after this show as I'm just a few miles away from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'll be headed down there, parking in the media lot, getting my stuff situated up in the media center, and then meeting up with Matthew. And Matthew and I will be doing some Facebook Live stuff. Last week, Matthew, it was one for the chipper, if you will, at the start of the GP, qualifying both 1 and 2, Scott Dixon and Felix Rosenfeld, rookie. Obviously, that's a Honda shop. Number 9 Honda, number 10 Honda. Well, what are we going to see again here? We got this at Oval. Obviously, we saw Scott Dixon do a come in second, which seems to be put a cot down for him. That seems to be what he knows for the GP race. But Chip Ganassi Racing bode well and has bode well here in Indianapolis this month. Felix Rosenfeld's car caught on fire, has some challenges, although he was the pole setter. But I tell you what, I am excited about Chip Ganassi in 2019.
Problem is he's got the wrong engine. If he still had a Chevrolet when they were getting poles, I'd feel a lot more confident about their chances getting P1 today. But they have the wrong engine. I think you'll see Dixon go for it, but I just don't think he's going to have enough to get all the way to position 1. He might get to maybe the first 3 rows, but I think that's the best you're going to get from the Iceman. And then Rosenquist, the crash certainly hurt him. He's had to go back to square one a little bit, and while I think he'll be in, he will be much further down the starting order than I think he would have been. I think if not for that crash, I think he was a definite top 9 contender alongside his teammate Scott Dixon.
Well, I tell you what, it's going to be exciting to see how well they do. We now are going to move into another. I kind of want to get the side story behind this because we talked about Pippa Man, and this is Clausen Marshall Racing. Obviously, Clausen is the father of Brian Clausen, who died a few years back in a racing accident. And you know, we saw him race at the Indianapolis 500. We've known him in the USAC. We knew him in the USAC, and he lost his life tragically in an accident. But Brian Clausen's father has now moved on and to own his own team, is starting to move things around. This is the first time we've seen Clausen Marshall Racing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and their driver is Pippa Man. Now, of course, this is one of those things where the Indianapolis 500 can take you a long way. And a lot of people, well, is it because of the money? No, it's because of notoriety. if we want to talk about the purse a little bit, the purse for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway kind of sucks. I mean, in retrospect, it's been about the same for about 10 years. And Robin Miller has a good take on this. He's like, hey, IMS, take some of the sponsor money that you're doing and chuck it into the purse. Maybe that'll make it more attractive to other drivers. And that's another hot take for another conversation. But nonetheless, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is 500. I'm sorry, the Indy 500 is not about the purse. It's about the notoriety. It's the greatest race in the world, and if you can place in the top 10, you have a shot at getting some real sponsorship, which is what I think that we're seeing happening here with Clausen Marshall. But also with Clausen Marshall, it's to honor his son. It's also Pippa Mann runs every year. She has a great foundation. She has a great ability to raise money. I don't want to go hot take on her because she's a good driver, but she's not. I would say she's not the great. She's not equipped. Let me put it that way. She's not able to run a full IndyCar schedule. If she was, she would have been picked up by another team by now. So we got Clausen Marshall, Pippa Mann. This is a good feel-good story. We like feel-good stories with the Indianapolis 500. This is one of those, as you said, she has a good shot of making the field. We saw her do well. We have followed her together over the years. But Pippa Mann, Clausen Marshall Racing, it's a good feel-good story. It's a good, hey, underdog story. But I think that's about as far as it goes, Matthew.
Getting them in the field, I'd say, would be a personal victory. I really thought they were in over their head. Limited technical support from their team. This is a team that runs in USAC dirt car racing and the midgets and sprints. Right. They have never seen anything like an asphalt track, 200 miles an hour, anything like that. I thought they were biting off more than they could chew. But they've kept their nose clean. They have done decent work. They haven't been overly impressive. They're at the top of the charts, but they have done enough to stay off the bottom of the charts. And add to that, they are avoiding the problems that other teams are facing this week. And I think that is enough to get them in at the expense of some of these other teams that on paper have a better resume and a better case to make the field. But because of their own shortcomings and stubbing their toes and shooting themselves in the foot, Pippa may get in at their expense.
Well, speaking of Pippa, I mean, Dale Coyne Racing has a long history with Pippa. Obviously, doesn't have her this year, but it has a long history with Pippa and thinks a lot about her. And I like her as well. I've talked to her many times. She came up through the Indy Lights with James Hinchcliffe, and so certainly I wish Pippa the best, but I'm with you. Let's talk about Dale Coyne Racing. Sebastian Bourdais, they're a Honda shop in the number 18 Honda. Ferrucci, a rookie, number 19 Honda, and then James Davison, number 33 Honda. What are your thoughts, DCR?
Well, Bourdais the threat for, the best qualifying run. I think he has the tweaks with Craig Hampton that the other two drivers, Ferrucci and Davison, will not have the luxury of having. Ferrucci's done okay considering his lack of oval experience. I think the overconfidence, the cockiness that he shows, I think it sometimes gets him into more trouble than good. But so far, it's not hurt him too badly this month, so he should be in better again than I thought he would initially do. Davison always seems to get the most out of qualifying, even when it's marginal equipment. Now, granted, I don't think he's going to out-qualify Bourdais, but I think he could easily out-qualify Ferrucci, and that would probably put him in the mid part of the field. And considering he only runs Indy, we've seen over the years, even when he replaced Sebastian Bourdais a couple of years ago, he had a chance to win that race. So he certainly has the ability and the potential to get there. The question is, can the car get him there? I think that's the only question with Davison as far as what he could do today.
This next stable, I think, missed an opportunity of pairing and marketing with the HBO and Game of Thrones. Dragon Speed is back. Ben Haley, the rookie, the number 81 Chevrolet. How awesome would it be to see a Game of Thrones car at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway? Just say it. Go ahead, man.
Very ambitious program that Elton Julian has put together. For those of you that do not know who Elton Julian is, he was at one time an American prospect for Formula One. Unfortunately, things didn't work out there. He went to team ownership and has put together a very solid program in the European and World Sports Car Championships and in IMSA, and is trying to turn that into something good for IndyCar. Hasn't worked out. This is their first ever oval race with a driver in Ben Hanley that has very limited open wheel experience. I think it showed this week. And again, I think it would be a personal victory just as much as it would be for Clausen Marshall if Dragon Speed were finding a way to get in the field. I don't think they're going to do it today, but say the weather holds off tomorrow, maybe they find a little bit more. Maybe they'll sneak their way in the last qualifying. But if you're going by prospects today, I think it's a long shot at best for Hanley to make the cut at this point.
We're talking with Matthew Embry, our official IndyCar contributor, WSBT up in South Bend, and is live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Matthew, let's talk a little bit about Dreyer and Ryan Boulder Racing. Obviously, last year they housed Danica Patrick, but this year, Sid Karam and J.R. Hillebrand, both in the Chevys in the 24 and 48, Sage in the 24, and J.R. Hillebrand in the 48.
Correct you first off. Danica was with Ed Carpenter's team, not with Dreyer.
You're right. My fault.
But
slay me,
Dreyer,
all right? Slay me.
This was a team that, again, made me a little bit nervous with the deeper field. This is a team that does not focus on qualifying like some of the other teams, even though they have the Chevrolet power plant. I thought that might catch them off guard. And like I said, Sage Karam looked a little shell-shocked. Looks like he's back in the mode as far as today goes, along with Hildebrand. But, if they have a little bad luck on their qualifying runs, they certainly could put themselves in danger. By no means they're, I'd say, locks to make the field, but they should be in the field. But the question is, do they, eat their spinach and get the job done and put all the pieces together when it counts? That's the key thing with these 4-lap runs is there are so many little integral details that can ruin the whole run that you have to keep your eye on and keep focus on. I mean, it's not just driving the car; it's adjusting the roll bars, it's adjusting, the gearing to make sure you have the proper gearing, be able to get the maximum out of the engine and the car. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the cockpit, and while they just see the cars going around, they have the new fan doesn't necessarily realize just how much work the driver is doing during that entire run.
Ed Carpenter Racing, one of my favorite hometown boys, and certainly he's known to get on the pole. He knows how to get on the pole there. Obviously, Ed Carpenter in the number 20 Chevrolet, Spencer Piggott in the number 21 Chevrolet, and Ed Jones in the number 63 Chevrolet, also daughter Isaac Cross Ortiz, Ed Carpenter Racing, Sergio Corsa Racing as well.
They certainly have a chance to get the job done against Team Penske. Early draw for Carpenter, I think, will help. The early draw for Piggott will help him. Jones has the mid-pack draw as far as the initial line, but he does have the fastest lap without a tow yesterday, and the only man to go over 2:30 on his own. So whether that equates to, these warmer conditions, we'll see. But if there is a team that I think that could knock Penske off of the pole, a guy like Power or Pagano, Carpenter, Piggott, Jones certainly could do it.
Talking about the field, getting ready for the Field of Three. Next week, we will have our annual special, the Field of 33, and we will literally break down all 33 cars of the 103rd running of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Harding Steinberger Racing, obviously. Who's this guy, this rookie that, oh, yeah, that's right, Colton Herta, number 88 Honda. Like this kid, like him a lot. Let's look for him to do some good things today and tomorrow.
And for those of you that are new to IndyCar racing and have heard the name Steinbrenner, yes, this is the grandson of the late Yankees owner, George Steinbrenner IV. However, unlike his grandfather, decided to go the racing route, has run a team in the Indy Lights division, won the championship last year with Herta. They made the move up with Andretti support, and then they managed to win Circuit of Americas earlier this year. And they certainly have made a good name for themselves this week. The only thing that's bad for them, like I mentioned earlier when we talked about Andretti, he'll be the last car out to go in the initial qualifying.